standing up. I'm having a difficult day today. Walked out of a group, selling group, and the fucking Indonesians have been just crawling all over me. They're worse than chasers. I haven't seen many chasers lately. I had somebody posing as a army general. In my he's trying to get me to send him a friend request. Well, here's an interesting little conversation going on. I can't really mention names because people get all up in their shit. This is an older transgender woman who's an IT professional sharing something from some guy who works in Panama City Beach and vacation rental. He posted something with the turd background. It'll be interesting to see how Fox News stays on the air now that the ruble is worthless. And I said it'll be even more interesting when the dollar crashes and the Chinese end up at the top of the imperial pyramid. And she's come back with, it won't last longer than the American century, nor be as dominant given the unique circumstances of the U.S. being the only major nation untouched by massive physical and financial damage at home during World War II. Watch that change. Also, China is repeating some of the same errors of past imperial powers. That's going to change radically here when the dollar crashes. You know, you have fucking wheelbarrows full of them. Someone was saying that people will be killing each other over gasoline as soon as next Friday. Also, China is repeating some of the same errors of past imperial powers. Well, yeah, they aren't real expansionists. They don't go. They kind of, don't go very far past their borders. They don't do that transatlantic or trans-Pacific shit that the Americans and Europeans like to do. So my response to that was, what would be nice is if the indigenous people and their woke neighbors would just say fuck you to all the people waving land titles around in all the competing empires. And she's going to, there's always the little people everywhere who the rich and powerful hurt. And the past 1,000 years of settler colonialism under divine rights claimed by puss-bag, warmongering sexual predators occupying thrones has ravaged the planet and completely upset the balance of nature. We will get our act together this decade, or the planet will force the carbon cycle back into homeostasis over the course of the rest of the century. The quantum mechanics of closed systems is funny that way. Newton's third law and all, you know. Gravity and motion are going to throw matter and energy back at every hole we dig on this rock. And that's a fact, Jack. And come at me with all you fools claiming that I don't know what I'm talking about when I start talking science. Especially the one I won't even name. I mean, that one's so stupid. What an opening that thing has left for me. And then we got Jacob Sockness. Look, man, I'm not part of that world. I'm an old hippie. I deal in shinies. That's my trip. And I play music. That's my trip. And I'm monogamous. All right? It's like, the anti stuff is cool, but that's where it stops. I want nothing to do with that world. You guys, it's intruding in mine. It's an annoyance to me. What I wanted to do, and I didn't want to, because I need to go to bed and get up early and pack to go to the show and be there by noon or so. It's about a 3-hour drive. So, Sandy's already there and she's got space for me. Deborah Dorland is not in a good way, and there's a lot of prayers for her well-being right now. She's in the hospital with a life-threatening infection that is not COVID, but I haven't heard in several hours what the current status is. I wanted to read something, but I just glanced at on Ruby Sales' wall. This is an interesting African American woman. Very interesting. She lives in D.C. She's from Columbus, Georgia. I live in D.C. and am a long-distance runner for justice. I'm a very wise lady. And tonight, this came through my feed. I read the introduction to it. I said, and I turned on the camera. But then I had to shut a bunch of stuff down before the camera would work, so I ended up talking about other things. Then I'm back to Ruby Sales. And here she said tonight, meditation on losing our minds in the age of speed, digitization, robots, and artificial intelligence. We cannot make freedom movements if we cannot focus. Your ability to edit, your ability to read this entire post is an important test that determines if you still possess the ability to focus. She omitted the word "to" there. So, but this was her introduction to something she had posted earlier, I guess. From Ruby Sales front porch. For example, a small study investigated how often an average American college student actually pays attention to anything. So the scientists involved putting tracking software on their computers and monitoring what they did in a typical day. They discovered that, on average, a student would switch tasks once every 65 seconds. The median amount of time they focused on any one thing was just 19 seconds. If you're an adult and tempted to feel superior, hold off. A different study by Gloria Mark, professor of informatics at the University of California, Irvine, who I interviewed, observed how long on average an adult working in an office stays on one task. It was 3 minutes. So I went on a 30,000-mile journey to find out how we can get our focus and attention back. Turn off the computer. Go blow on an instrument for a few minutes and then do something else constructive before you go back to the computer. At least that's how I do it. And then I try to focus on, I'm wasting too much time in the news feed. And not getting actual tasks like my products properly up and running and all of that. The second reason we need to think about this subject is that this fracturing of attention isn't just causing problems for us as individuals. It's causing crises in our whole society. As a species, we are facing a slew of unprecedented tripwires and trapdoors, like the climate crisis. And unlike previous generations, we're mostly not rising to solve our biggest challenges. Why? Part of the reason, I think, is that when attention breaks down, problem solving breaks down. Solving big problems requires a sustained focus of many people over many years. Democracy requires the ability of a population to pay attention long enough to identify real problems, distinguish them from fantasies, come up with solutions, and hold their leaders accountable if they fail to deliver them. If we lose that, we lose our ability to have a fully functioning society. I don't think it's a coincidence that this crisis in paying attention has taken place at the same time as the worst crisis of democracy since the 1930s. People who can't focus will be more drawn to simplistic authoritarian solutions and less likely to see clearly when they fail. That's the low info voter, the true believer on the left or the right. The more extreme you are, the more you're not focused on the doing the greatest good for the greatest number with the least negative impact to anything else, you're not focused on outside of your own being, outside of your bubble. A world of attention-deprived citizens alternating between Twitter and Snapchat will be a world of cascading crises where we can't get a handle on any of them. Johann Hari, who says I'm losing focus, why you can't pay attention. Oh, this is from somebody. She's quoting somebody, Johann Hari, from a book on losing focus, why you can't pay attention and learning to think deeply again. Turn off the computer. Walk away from it. Go do something else that isn't electronic. It's easy, you know. And when you're, you know, close the tabs. Just close some tabs when you're done with them. She says as she's closing tabs. Log in, proof point. I already been there. We don't need that. We don't need that. They're talking about the Idaho Bill 675. And I question, you know, how do you justify this legislation? You know, this is by Kevin Hoffman. That's KJ Hoffman, 1969, at Facebook. It's titled Idaho Comes to Its Senses. Finally, some common sense legislation that will protect our children from trender parents. Associates are reminded to make the usual campaign contributions in the supplied names. I went off on this one. I definitely need to read this one. Make sure it sounds good when you read it out loud. So I asked him, how do you justify this legislation against long-term clinical studies that are clearly demonstrating that transgender kids are getting the proper health care, are thriving, and those who are being forced into unnatural gender roles are killing themselves at horrific rates, fellows. So here's the millennial turkey. Show these multiple peer-reviewed long-term clinical studies that demonstrate that transgender kids are thriving, and those being forced into unnatural gender roles are killing themselves at horrific rates. Fat shit, fuck stick. Be right back. In the meanwhile, produce something peer-reviewed that supports denying transgender children pediatric care. And I gave him 3 links, and he's like, you read none of this. And then he's saying, no, I didn't make the claim. And I said, the fuck I didn't justify the legislation. Now, in the meantime, see, these people think they occupy my whole attention. Where the fuck did that go? Did I lose it? I hope not. Yeah, got it. In the meantime, I selected 4 of these links and presented them for families facing genocidal anti-trans legislation in their home states. Here are several links to recent peer-reviewed articles supporting the medical consensus on affirmative pediatric gender care. This one, the last one, was from Nature. Or no, it was from the JAMA Network. This one is especially curious, testing the impact of media coverage on transgender-related topics to clinic referrals. The more those of us in the closet saw happy trans kids in media, the more of us that brought out. As the fight heated up after 2015, with the Obergefell versus Hodges ruling and Caitlyn Jenner's tabloid transition, post-ops who had been in stealth for decades came out to stand with the parents to protect trans kids. Numerous prominent older ones, most notably Lynn Conway and Jennifer Finney Boylan, who had been in it all along, started to get major network exposure. Media exposure in Texas was associated with an uptick of trans misogynistic attacks in the schools, so there is the downside of visibility. I think that increased visibility is resulting in increased acceptance, though. Polls show a clear majority of people who are opposed to new discriminatory legislation and support LGBTQ plus equality now. There aren't more queer kids. It's just safer for them to talk about it now because there is so much support from the doctors and so many queer and straight elders to nurture them. Same-sex attraction and transgender identities are part of the natural order of things, and people who don't fit the male-female binary have been born into all cultures throughout recorded history. European-style Judeo-Christian religious nationalist settler colonialism has sought to exterminate sex-gender non-conforming people everywhere it has built its cancerous cities, persisting and attempting to do so today around the world and in state legislatures in the United States. The God who speaks to me roars not in my name, and the goddess Shekhinah, is in pain, pleading for an end to the abuse of the plant, animal, and mineral life forms of her amazing body. I can only ask, how long before you keep your promises, Lord, and put an end to war and injustice? How about you, Jesus Christ? When are you all going to put in that appearance you promised? This is another one. No, I don't want to go there right now. I'll do that some other time. How long has this been running? That's plenty. Keep this one kind of short. I need to just chill. I've had a difficult week, and it's still, there's $1,500 flying around that's like missing in action. Yeah, I need to go. I'm driving to Deming, New Mexico in the morning. I'm doing a show. I need to get nice and good and clean and girl it up pretty good, and go hang out with the sisters in Deming. Bring a lot of nice, pretty, shiny rocks. Happy day. Thanks for watching. Bye.